Alrighty, how's it going, Mets and overall baseball fans? Thank you guys all so much for chiming in for the latest show here in WardyNYM. This time, not a post-game coverage, but a series preview as the New York Mets currently have an off day as I'm live right now, 6 p.m. Eastern time. But the Mets will start their series tomorrow and will cap off a 14 straight stretch against, yes, their NL East rivals. We saw them play not just the Braves, not just the Phillies, but now the Nationals for the second time this season in a 3-game set that begins tomorrow evening around 7 p.m. Eastern time. So, folks, I'll be breaking down everything that you guys could possibly know about this series, matching up the Mets against these Nationals. How have the Nationals looked this season, especially since their opening series against the Mets this year? How are the Mets planning to look potentially against this Nationals team in a 3-game set? Who are the guys that stand out to me, not just for the Mets, but for the Nationals side too? And maybe not so much the obvious guys as well we'll be breaking down in this 3-game set, but nonetheless, a lot to get into. I'm very excited for a New York Mets team that has won 20 of their first 30 games this season, have yet to lose a series, winning their first 8 of 9. The only series that they did not win, they split in that 4-game set against the Braves. So the Mets have been rolling high, to put it lightly. Them alongside the fellow team in New York, that being the Yankees. They secured their 20th victory today with a 1-0 win over the Rangers and a nasty Nestor Cortez going over 7 scoreless, 7 no-hit innings. So both teams in New York thriving. The reason why I mentioned that is because the Mets were the first team to win 20 games. It only took a day, and now the Yankees are tied with the Mets for most wins in baseball. And of course, you have the great teams in LA and both the Dodgers and the Angels alike that have been leading their divisions respectfully. But like I said, we got a lot to break down. I'm very excited to get into this one. So for everyone just chiming in the live stream, thank you guys so much for being here. You know the drill by now if you're new here on the channel. If you are new at least, then you know that I would really appreciate if you smash that like and subscribe button to help us get to 100 likes for the first short-term goal and help us get to 16K subs for the next short-term goal here on the channel. I believe we're right around 700 away, so not terribly far. Again, thank you all so much for the continued support. But I'm going to do a quick roll call for people in the chat right now, and then we're going to get rolling. And for people on replay, if you guys don't know, again, I'll be breaking out everything that there is to know about the series, and then I'll be cutting things off for you guys. But if you're here in the live streams, I'll be answering all your comments, questions, and concerns per usual, like we have been doing basically daily since the start of the season. Actually, not even since the start, way before since the start of the season. We've been doing this for quite a bit now for the most consistent Mets coverage here on YouTube. But guys, I see a lot of you guys. Appreciate everyone chiming in right now. I see Alex, Nick, Mets Nation, Elliot, my man, Stephen A, great member on the channel, Ghostway, Jake from State Farm. I appreciate you, Jake, taking your time out of the way from State Farm to chime in here. All jokes aside, Yoshima, how's it going? Great member. Jocelyn, how's it going? Midnight, great member. Legendary Productions, how's it going? Watermelon, right? Dolores, how's it going? Michael, the Dodger fan schmuck. All jokes aside, I appreciate the late again comments. I really do. Cue the sarcasm if I haven't already picked up on it already. If you haven't, I should say. Garcia, how's it going? Dolores again. Sarah, American Mafia Media. I like that name. That's pretty cool. Elliot, Darren, great member and friend on the channel. Ocean Girl, how's it going? Jubilee, thank you all so much again for chiming in. And like I said to folks, I will be addressing all your comments and concerns as soon as I possibly can. But we got a lot to talk about. So to everybody just chiming in now, appreciate you all being here. But let's talk about this Mets and Nationals series. However, Kevin Hedge, a new member here on WardyNYM, thank you so much for that, Kevin. Hype in the chat for Kevin here in the live stream. Thank you so much for joining the channel, buddy. I hope that you find this live stream well and for all the remaining content that you'll see here all throughout the week and every single week here in WardyNYM. But appreciate that very much so, Kevin. Thank you so much for a new membership here. But the Mets are going in. They're facing the Washington Nationals the second time they're doing this season and the second time that they're in D.C. The Mets are not home yet for a series against the Nationals as they're in D.C. now. And if you guys don't know, I was in attendance for one of the games this year. It was actually the Mets' second game this season. I was in DC when Mad Max had his Mets debut against his former club in the Nationals, where he pitched for quite a while. The Mets ended up winning that game. That's when Francisco Lindor got hit in the head, right in the cheek. He broke his molar, but other than that, he was okay. And the whole brawl that ensued, all that crazy stuff. But regardless, the Mets won 3 of 4 against the Nationals in that 4-game set and easily should have won all those 4 games. The only reason why they didn't win the series finale when Cookie Carrasco's first start of the year was beautifully pitched, in which he had himself 5.1 or 5.2 innings of pitching just 1-run ball. However, the Mets, they had a bullpen implosion. Really wasn't so much a bullpen. Trevor Williams was like that 8th inning. That wasn't even so much Trevor as it was Pete Alonso had 2 crucial errors, which is what led the Nationals to score their runs and have that series finale victory and to salvage the series without being swept. But the Nationals have been arguably the worst team in baseball so far this season. And this is a Mets team that, arguably being the best, should take full advantage of whatever the Nationals give them, because this is a team that you need to jump on. You cannot sacrifice anything less of a series win against a team like the Nationals, given where they are currently at, given where the Mets are at. Anything less, simply, there are not much excuses that you can give. And in all fairness, in all honesty, this is a team for the Mets that you absolutely need to win at minimum 2 of 3. Now, again, I would love a series sweep just as much as the next guy. And if you're going to do it, this is a series 2. Absolutely do it. But I'm not getting my hopes up. Again, 2 out of 3 is what you need against this team. But who stands out? What are the pitching matchups that we are going to have in this one, folks? That's what we're going to break down now. So again, for people just chiming in, thank you so much. Continue smashing that like and subscribe on. As always, folks, if you find yourself enjoying this series preview show, and the reason why I'm doing it a day before we have our first game tomorrow night around 7 p.m. Eastern time is, especially on off days, I feel that's a perfect day to do series preview. That gives more longevity for this, because I know the drill. Once the series starts, you guys aren't going to want to watch the preview because you care about what the games are happening, and rightfully so. But I do see some spam in the chat. Let me get rid of that quick. That's unfortunate. These things do happen at times. Not a problem. But let's get into pitching matchup, shall we? Like I said, this is going to be an interesting one, and I have a little asterisk, the next to McGill, Walker, and Crasso, because nothing is official as of now, folks. This is just based off of what probables I've seen online that isn't the MLB app, and also based on how it is looking, because Tyler McGill is matched up based on every 5 days to pitch to start this series, in which he pitched against the Nationals already this year, making his season debut. The series opener, the season opener for the New York Mets, where he pitched unbelievably well. But as things stand currently around, based on hypotheticals, based on what things are matched up for every 5 days, Game 1 should be Tyler McGill versus Patrick Corbin until proven otherwise. And based on this pitching matchup, Tyler, who came off of another solid performance, unfortunately just had the wrong end of the stick because Adam Ottavino came in for relief when he had guys on. Couldn't even get one out, and McGill gave up more runs than he probably should have in his most recent start in that game against the Braves, in which the Mets ended up losing that series finale against him. But no less, McGill is 4-1 on the year with a unbelievably strong 2.43 ERA. The first time he faced the Nationals, the only other time he faced them this year, and that opening game this season, he had 5 scoreless innings against these Nationals. So hopefully Tyler can pick up right where he left off in DC to start the season and have another quality outing should he start tomorrow night against Patrick Corbin and, yes, the Washington Nationals. But let's talk about Patrick Corbin, because I've seen a lot of gripes with Patrick Corbin. You guys know the drill. Corbin, who, of course, was a huge part of their run just a couple years ago when they won the World Series in 2019, that being the Washington Nationals. However, since then, Corbin has really been in a downward spiral in a very short period of time. Last year was his worst year of his career, arguably. Had a terrible win-loss record. Again, not that that means much, but still, his ERA was not looking pretty. He just struggled with his command and everywhere. And especially to start the year against the Mets, he gave up 2 earned runs, only 4 innings against the Mets in one of the games so far this season in DC. But Corbin is currently 0-5 on the year, looking for his first victory of the season with a 7.16 ERA. So Corbin, again, a lefty, even though the Mets have struggled against lefties for the most part all year long. They did tack on 2 runs and only 4 innings against Corbin, and hopefully they can do more of the same, if not even more than that, and say a 4-5. How many innings that Corbin is expected to pitch against the Mets this series? But keep an eye on Corbin. Again, he's that lefty. Mets have always had problems with lefties, but however, the Mets have also had the upper hand at times against Patrick Corbin, not just this season, but in general. There's a couple Mets in particular that stand out against Patrick Corbin. And it's not just Pete Alonso, his phenomenal numbers against him. And Pete isn't in my, my favorite for guys to watch this series. Not that I wouldn't pick him, and I do expect Pete to have a great series, but I don't know exactly how much playing time Pete is going to get being this against the Nationals that are 10-20. And 2, I want to mix things up a little bit for my picks, as you see from the 4 players here. But one guy that is not on the list, but definitely a player to keep an eye on, especially against Patrick Corbin in Game 1, is Patrick Corbin's biggest killer. Literally, there's no batter that has played better against Patrick Corbin in all the MLB currently right now than, yes, J.D. Davis. Now, J.D. did not do anything crazy in his first game against him this season, but J.D. in his career has himself 10 hits in only 30 attempts. He's 10 for 30 with 4 home runs, 6 RBIs in 12 games against Patrick Corbin in his career. Needless to say, yeah, J.D. Davis has quite literally been Patrick Corbin's daddy, and we should not be surprised if that trend continues tomorrow night against Corbin and these Nats. But then we get into Game 2 of this series. Again, this is unofficial from the Mets, so if the pitching matchups are any different, don't quote me to it. I'm telling you right now, this is just based off of what I've seen right now, based off of the every 5th day cycle. Taijuan Walker is expected as of now, until proven otherwise, to pitch Game 2 against these Nationals. Taijuan is coming off of his worst start this season. Taijuan has only pitched in a game and a half, not even. I mean, he pitched 2 scoreless in Philly in his first start this year. Then he was out with injury, was on the IL at his rehab starts. Then he came back and pitched 5 scoreless against the Phillies in that Mets series victory in Citi Field. And of course, they had their latest series victory against the Phillies just yesterday, in which I was in attendance for that doubleheader where the Mets lost to 1-1. Check out that post-game show if you haven't already, folks. There's a lot of fun breaking it down, being in attendance especially. Always great to see Pistol Pete Alonso hit 2 bombs and one get a game in one day overall. Love to see that. But Taijuan is looking for a bounce-back start after he gave up 6 earned runs in his last start for the Mets, so hopefully he has some better results here. He is currently 0-0 on the year with a 4.91 ERA. Again, very early in the year for him, coming off of his injury. This is a good time for him to really not necessarily be tested, but try to get a good amount of innings. At least 6 against the Nationals would be surely more than ideal if he can work that pitch count to a good amount. But then we have against not Anibal Sanchez, but no, the other Ace Sanchez, the former Toronto Blue Jay where he had his best success, that being an Aaron Sanchez. Aaron Sanchez, who really is a shell of what he once was in the league. However, the veteran right-hander has 1-2 on the year with an 8.56 ERA. He's expected to get the Game 2 start here in the series for the Nationals. And he, like Taijuan Walker, gave up 6 earned runs himself his last start. But this time it was against the Colorado Rockies. And again, Colorado, they've been an up-and-down team so far this year. Definitely strive with their offense. And especially if you're in Colorado, that's no easy task. But however, you have Taijuan versus Aaron Sanchez for Game 2. That's what it looks like. And then Game 3, it looks like we're going to have Cookie Carrasco. Cookie, about his first start this year in DC originally, pitched beautifully, had 5.2, only 1 run ball, and that was because of Nelson Cruz taking him deep. That's all she wrote, though. That was early in the game. I think that was in the first or second inning. Outside of that, though, he gave up absolutely nothing, and unfortunately, the bullpen and Pete Alonso's defensive errors in that game led to the loss, but Cookie deserved the win and hopefully gets it in the series finale should he start. Cookie's 2-1 on the year with a 3.30 ERA. Carrasco, after giving up 8 earned runs, yes, 8 earned runs against the St. Louis Cardinals, pitched his best game of his season and one of his best of his entire career, pitching 8 scoreless innings against, yes, those Atlanta Braves, and the Mets doubleheader sweep of them just a couple days ago in their previous series, 2 series ago, facing off against Yoan Adon, or Adon. I apologize if I'm saying the right-hander's last name wrong. However, Yoan is 1-5 on the year, has pitched against the Mets array. He has a 6.99 nice ERA, and he, in 4.18 pitch, gave up 4 earned runs against the Mets and the Mets series victory back to start the season against these Nationals in DC. But that'll be Cookie against Yoan Adon, looking like for Game 3 in the series finale, which is a day game around 1 p.m. Eastern time. And then we get into the guys that stand out to me in this series, guys. And like I said, we got a lot to get into. I see a lot of comments in the chat, and I very much so appreciate them. Just hold on. I will address all of them as soon as I am done breaking down what I truly believe needs to be known about this series, and some guys that stand out, not just based on recency bias in the previous series, but also overall how they played against the Nationals and the playing time that I personally expect them to get against the Nationals team that is a bottom feeder 10-20. Normally when you're facing off against a team like the Nationals, I find it hard to believe, especially with Buck and all the players that he's been rotating off the bench in the lineup on a game-by-game basis, that we won't see a decent amount of playing time for some guys that haven't necessarily been everyday players for the Mets. But one guy who has had a mix of playing time, that being a Mark Canha, who's normally the left fielder for the Mets. He is a guy that definitely stands out, not just because, one, what he had in the 3 games out of the 4 that he played against the Nationals this season, he absolutely killed them. I mean, he was looking like an NL MVP through that first series. All jokes aside, a 700 average, 2 RBIs for Mark Canha, who was just simply phenomenal in that series opener against DC, in DC for that matter. But then we have not just Mark Canha that stands out. He has over 400 average in 5 career games against the Nationals. Again, this is a guy that played his entire career in Oakland, so naturally he hasn't faced the Nats much until, of course, his time now with the New York Mets. But another player that stands out, he is by far the most notable. That is, of course, in Francisco Lindor. Lindor was one of the best hitters for the Mets in this Phillies series. Yes, he didn't stand out too much, but he did come up clutch when the Mets needed him to. Went 2 for 9 in the doubleheader yesterday, but did have 1 RBI, which should have been a home run because of the wind, not in his favor in the dead end ball. It was a 1 RBI, and a run score. But Lindor, however, I like his chances against a DC team. Lindor, who again is trying to get a full swing of things. He has swung the ball incredibly well, not just with that 2-run home run that he had in the 9th inning, 7-run rally for the Mets to win 8-7 over the Phillies in the series opener a couple days ago. But Lindor, if you look at his expected numbers, as I've been saying, I'll say it again, the amount of times that this man should have had easily a double or a home run that fell short because of these dead balls or just piss poor weather. I mean, it's been bad luck, but I'm not concerned in the slightest with Lindor, and you shouldn't be either, especially in a series where even against the Nationals, Lindor's still going to get a good amount of playing time. I love his chances against a Nats team that so far this season, in the first series this year, has an over 1,000 OPS, had a home run and 2 RBIs in that first matchup against basically all the same pitchers. So I expect similar results, at least, at minimum, from Francisco in this matchup. Then we have Eduardo Escobar. Eddie Escobar, one man who has definitely been slumping, a guy that I think we're going to talk about a bit, should that trend continue or not. Escobar, who's been an on-base king for the Mets so far this season, but has definitely had his struggles at times. However, Escobar did really well in that first matchup against the Nationals and is one of the teams that has thrived against best so far this season, along with the likes of the San Francisco Giants, for example. He did really well in that Giants series too. But Escobar has a 974 OPS against the Nationals this year, doesn't have a home run or an RBI, but was definitely getting on base, had 3 hits, and got walked a boatload. I mean, that was the start of Eddie Escobar, going from known for being, a decent 250 or so average hitter, upwards of 30-plus bombs a year, to being just this on-base phenom to start the year, and it really hasn't slowed down too much. I mean, Eddie, again, has not looked great at the plate as of late. He went 0 for 9 yesterday in the doubleheader against the Phillies, but he's someone that if you're really trying to find your swing back and you're struggling, you want to try to take full advantage against a bottom feeder like the Nationals. That's why I like Escobar's chances, not just because of the bias of how he did in his first series against DC, but also because of the fact that this is a prime time for him to really try to bounce back and get back in a groove of things, as the Mets, of course, will have a tough schedule after this DC matchup. But then the final player I have, and I've only been picking 3 guys for really the entire series previews after every series, but I'm 1-4 today because there's one guy that I truly do not know how much playing time he's going to have in this series, but the odds are forever in his favor for basing things on how Buck has operated and how he played against the Nationals so far in a couple games this year. And that's the speed demon, the 4th outfielder, Swiss Army knife, and yes, Travis Jankowski. Jankowski has a 500 average and 2 stolen bags against the Nationals. He had 1 stupid stolen bag attempt from second to third, in which he was out with ease against DC. But other than that, he was a speed demon. I love Jankowski's chances of at least at minimum starting one of the 3 games against the Nationals, and I think he absolutely has the right to. Again, I've seen a lot of gripes of people not liking, however, how not necessarily Jankowski, but how there's been a solid mix of guys that should be starters every day and guys coming off the bench getting a good amount of playing time. Not everyone has loved that, and I can understand that for certain, other than, of course, Buck trying to get acclimated with everyone and seeing how they're going to do early on. But especially against a Nationals team that is where they are right now, is expected to be where they are, this is the time to truly jump on the bit and get creative with your lineups. Get creative by having some of those guys out there that maybe have either been slumping as of late or guys that just aren't getting enough playing time when maybe they deserve it. I think Jankowski is a guy that has proven he is deserving of at minimum getting 1 start out of these 3 games, and wouldn't even be outlandish to see him maybe playing 2 of the 3 games. I mean, if you're going to do it, this is a series to do it. Full-fledged, nothing better in my personal opinion. I think most of you guys can probably agree. But those are the 4 that stand out to me for the New York Mets in this series. Again, to everybody chiming in, thank you all so much. Continue smashing that like and subscribe on as always, folks. But let's get into the 3 Nationals in particular. There's, of course, more that we'll talk about here shortly. But there's at minimum 3 that stand out to me for the New York Mets. And it starts with Juan Soto. I mean, I don't think I need to talk more about Juan Soto other than the fact that he's arguably the best player in baseball. I mean, yes, he has a sub 900 OPS, and I know sub 900 for Soto is actually a bad thing, which is crazy. The man, he's batting over 250 this year, still looking strong. Doesn't even lead the Nationals in hits, surprisingly. That is going to be, and their veteran, was a minor leaguer for a while, but has gained more playing time given the current state of the team. And Yadiel Hernandez leads the team with 36 hits. Soto has 28, but no less. Juan Soto had a home run, didn't do anything crazy in the first series against the Mets, in which Tyler McGill and Max Scherzer did pretty well against them, even though that Max did give up a bomb to Soto, if I'm not mistaken, that 4-game set. However, Soto, you always got to keep an eye on him. He's a Mets killer. It's not the matter of if he's going to do well, but rather if he doesn't do well, that would be the head-scratching, surprising aspect of one of the best young phenoms in all baseball right now, best overall players, if not the best. Soto in his career against the New York Mets, just to throw it out there, again, not that career numbers should mean much when you're talking about Juan Soto, but no less, Soto has a 305 career average against the Mets in 61 games, including 13 home runs and 38 RBIs. I mean, need I say more? That's Juan Soto for you, baby. He's just an absolute killer, not just for the Mets, but for every team in baseball. The other man that I have is Josh Bell, who I'm an idiot. I put Belt as I apologize, guys. There's always going to be at least one error. It's funny. I don't know why I put Belt there when I specifically typed out Bell originally, but I looked at that and I said, no, that's Brandon Bell. Why did I put Bell? And I'm just an idiot. I'm thinking this is a Giants series for whatever reason. Change that for if you're wondering why it says Bell, it should be Josh Bell. So my mistake, guys. If you're not getting at least one spelling error from me, then odds are there might be a problem if we're being completely honest. So Josh Bell is the name that should be there. Josh Bell did really well against the New York Mets in that opening series so far this year. Has plenty of familiarity against the Mets. Longtime Pittsburgh Pirate, now Washington National. And again, he's had a phenomenal start to the season. He has been arguably, if not the best, then definitely one of the best players for the Nationals early on this season. He's batting way over 300, looking fantastic for them. And again, a team with only 10 wins, it's not an easy thing to have some standouts in your lineup, but we're looking at someone that easily could be a big trade chip, a big slugger available at the trade deadline. As if we look at the numbers right now for Josh Bell early on this season as a whole, and over 100 at-bats, has a 343 average, 4 home runs, 21 RBIs, and a 971 OPS. So yeah, Josh Bell has had a phenomenal start to the year. And don't get me wrong, this is not something that I expect to continue at this pace all year long, OPS-wise, but definitely a guy that is thriving and getting back to maybe his old self from a couple years ago when he had his career year against the Pittsburgh Pirates not too long ago. But Bell, against the Mets in the couple games set, the 4-game set, did have 4 hits, 2 runs, a home run, a stolen base, and 2 RBIs versus the Mets in 4 games so far this season. And then some other guys that stand out to me, I got to go with Keibert Ruiz. If you're wondering who's Keibert Ruiz, yes, Keibert Ruiz, the young stud of a catcher for the Nationals. He was acquired along with Josiah Gray, young starting pitcher for the Nationals from the LA Dodgers last year when they traded away both Trey Turner and, yes, the now New York Met and Max Scherzer. That is correct. But Keibert Ruiz stood out to me right away for the Nationals when I was in attendance against Scherzer. He had the upper hand against Mad Max. I mean, Ruiz has looked damn good against the Mets in a small sample size. He has a 364 average, 4 hits total, and at least 1 double, if not 2, in 3 games against the Mets early on this year. Keibert Ruiz has all the potential to be another one of those big Mets killers as long as he's a Washington National. That's a very solid start to the season for him. I love his chances, as unfortunate as that may be to say, to thrive in this 3-game set against the Mets. But outside of those 3 that we have just talked about, there's one more player that I really hope that all you Mets fans keep an eye on, and that is the Mets killer, one of the biggest Mets killers in baseball. Don't get me wrong, he did not do anything for the most part against the Mets in the first series this year, but you always got to keep an eye on him. And that is longtime former Philadelphia Philly, was a Baltimore Oriole last year. The Mets even tried to acquire him last minute last year, but he ended up signing with the Orioles, expecting to play every day. He still had a down year, though. And that is, yes, in the former Philadelphia Philly Met killer and Maikel Franco. Franco has an over 280 average so far this season, playing far better than what he did at really any point last year in his 1 year with the Baltimore Orioles. Has 20 home runs and 58 RBIs in only 75 games against these New York Mets. He, again, like Kyle Schwarber, like Austin Riley, like Paul DeJong, he is a Met killer. It's not going to stop anytime soon, I don't think. I think, if anything, he's going to get back to his Met killing self, knowing that he's back in the division after being the AL for a year. So keep an eye on Maikel Franco. He did not do a lick against the Mets in the 4-game set early on this year. That shouldn't change the approach with him. Again, as long as he's barreling the ball well, he's had a solid start so far this season, hitting pretty well. I mean, yeah, he's always a guy that you have to be wary of, regardless on where he is in his personal career-wise, statistically, because he, more often than not, is going to kill the Mets. So you got to keep an eye on him. And as I said already about J.D. Davis, definitely another guy to keep an eye on for the Mets here. And outside of JD, of course, you could talk about Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso has great numbers against Patrick Corbin in his career, which Corbin will be pitching game 1 of the series. Alonso solid numbers against these other pitchers too. But no less, I went with these 4 in Canada, Lindor, Escobar, Jankowski for the following reasons, as I just explained to you all. So in a nutshell, this is going to be hopefully a fun series for the Mets. This should be high-flying on the offensive end. This is a series, again, there's no excuses not to win this one, folks. I'm sorry. When you have expected pitchers, even a McGill, Walker, and Cookie, that is more confidence than I could ever tell you when it comes to this team, should win at minimum 2 or 3. And you can even make a rightful argument that the Mets should absolutely try their best to sweep this series. The Mets have yet to sweep a series this year. If it's going to be any series, the odds are forever in their favor to do it against this Nationals team. Again, I'm knocking on wood. I'm not trying to jinx anything, but this is a series. I'm sorry, guys. I have hiccups out of nowhere. This is a series that you absolutely have to try to take full advantage of against these Nationals. So for people on replay, which is not you guys, this is where I'll be cutting things off. I hope you guys enjoyed the series preview between the Mets and the Nationals that starts tomorrow night at the time of recording this. Let me know your thoughts and comments below. What players stand out the most for you in both the Mets and the Nationals side in this 3-game set? And what are you hoping for as a Mets fan for an outcome? Are you hoping for a series victory, a series sweep, whatever it may be? Please let me know. And of course, thank you so much for watching. For people on live, I'm going to start answering all your comments, questions, and concerns, so don't go anywhere. But for people on replay, again, this is where I'll be cutting things off.